the ParaNatural Podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the ParaNatural Podcast. I'm Christian Key. I'll be your host, and tonight we are talking about local legends. Of course, we're here in Tennessee, and I've been super interested in local legends since I was a kid. Sitting in tonight, of course, I'm Christian Key. I'm your host, and on the couch we got Big Hen Dog.
That's me.
Henry Woodard. He's here, and also my beautiful wife, Christy.
Hello.
Say hello. Christy's very happy because we've basically got a cryptozoology episode for you. we're going to be discussing.
She's in her element.
Right, exactly. We're going to be discussing some things about Tennessee here. That's going to be. I'll put it to you like this: it's going to be right up Christy's alley. We're going to be talking about some of the things. Goings-ons that people have told us about and the local legends that we all know about growing up. Now, of course, the first thing that we were going to talk about was the Bell Witch. Right, guys?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tennessee. You know what I mean?
Adams,
Obviously.
Tennessee.
You have to talk about the Bell Witch if you're doing local legends in Tennessee.
Right. It's right down the road. You know what I mean?
The Bell Witch is one of the most known local legends of this state.
For sure. That's okay. I'll put it to you like this. Not many ghost stories can claim that they have a witness who was a United States president. Okay? Stop and think about that. Andrew Jackson saw the Bell Witch, acknowledged that it happened. Supposedly, now there's a quote, they can't prove it, but it's attributed, right, to Andrew Jackson, and he said he would rather take on the entire British Army before he took on the Bell Witch. He was actually went to investigate, and his cart got stuck in the road on a flat and wouldn't move. Like, they pushed, they pulled, they got ox.
See, I find that kind of weird because they had wagon wheels and they had a flat.
I guess it technically
Bell
would be
Witch-
a flat. It'd be, I don't know what you
The Bell
describe
Witch
that as, but
gives a wagon a flat. But
That's something to ponder about
well,
for the next
see,
episode.
now, the thing of it is, we all know about the Bell Witch, and we're all scared to death of it.
She's
you know,
creepy.
we know, we hear this in elementary school on up. You know what I mean?
I heard this at kindergarten.
But there's rules. The funny part to me is this is a local, regional thing, right? Happened right down the road, and there's rules to it. Like, I have a friend on Facebook named Adam Sweatman. He's my buddy from elementary school. We went to White House together, right? What's up,
sorry.
Adam, if you're listening? Yeah, a lot of us are White House kids. But Adam sends me a message on Facebook, and he's joking or whatever, and he says that you have to spin around 9 times in front of the mirror and say, I hate the blank blank. You know what I'm saying? I'm not actually going to say it, but I hate the Bell Witch. All right, it's what you're supposed to say. And you're supposed to spin around 9 times. And, of course, he's joking. He's being a smart aleck. And he's like, you spin around 9 times and then pull out your phone and take a selfie, you know, and look at it. He's like, I'm updating the legend. And I'm like, that's right. There was a thing where you would go in the bathroom and turn off the lights and turn around and say that. And then supposedly she would show up over your shoulder. Do you remember hearing this?
Bloody Mary or...
Yeah, Candyman.
That's exactly.
No,
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's Bloody Mary, but it's just
yeah,
a
it was
regional
Bloody Mary,
twist.
and you say it 3 times in front of the mirror with the lights off, and then you flip the lights on or something like that.
Well,
Right,
Hey,
that's
we
when-
need to set up a mirror in here so we could do that.
I'm
when
not
we have
doing that.
No, you
one
can go do
interview.
it by yourself, big dog.
At your house.
Yeah, do it at your house. We ain't
You
letting no
that
demons
that
up in
creepy
here.
woman in my house.
No, as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. We ain't doing no demons. But at any rate, everyone knows about the Bell Witch, and there's tons of stories. And I'd say that probably, no joke, no exaggeration, 75% of the people I've talked to have said that they've been touched when they go in the cave.
I'm one of
Henry's
them.
one of them. Everybody says that they get touched when they go in this cave. People,
So there's a pervert hanging out in the Bell Witch Cave, is what you're saying.
Basically,
Out in the creepy dark corners of the Bell Witch Cave, there's a pervert hanging out in there touching people.
no wonder there's
spirit.
no wonder they're part of the cave. It's called the Eagle's Back.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But but the deal of it is, there's what I was trying to say was this Bell Witch thing. There's rules to it. There's actual story. You know what I mean? And this is something that we're told from the point that we're kids. All right. Well, we were going to do some research on this, but we found out that they have a cave and they do tours and everything, but they're not open until May.
Yeah,
Is it
May.
May,
and then they're not open during times of excessive rainfall.
During and after rainfall.
Yeah, such as what we've had here forever. But so we were going to do the Bell Witch, but we're going to save all the good Bell Witch stuff for later when we can actually dig into it and do an investigation. So one of the things, though, when we're talking about local legends, that we got to digging around and looking for different stories from people we knew. And one of the first things that come up, if you were around Springfield in the 60s,
66. It was the summer of 66.
if
Like
you
June
were
and July-ish.
if you were anywhere around Springfield in 66, you heard about this situation, this phenomenon known as the Carrs Creek Critter. I think we've all heard stories about the Carrs Creek Critter, and around here anyway. And so Christy, I was like, do me a favor, please check out this Carrs Creek Critter, because you'd heard about it when you were a kid, right?
My cousin Nathan used to scare the hell out of me with the Carrs Creek Critter when I was a kid. I was probably our daughter's age. I was probably 9 or 10, something like that. And he's 2 years older than me. And he would tell me anytime, we were out, we've got a lot of woods that surround our house. Anytime I was out in the woods, he'd say, watch out, Carrs Creek Critter's going to get you. We actually had this one time where this stray goat wandered up to our house.
Wait. Random goat?
Yes, stray goat.
Okay.
We've had a stray horse up here too, but this is the stray goat that I'm talking about.
The killer attack goat.
But so we were worried that maybe a coyote would get it or something. So my mom put this round, like, metal picnic table with the chairs backed up to it on the porch because she figured goats climb and jump on things. So it'd jump up on the table if something, a dog or whatever, got after it. And so one day the goat comes up dead on the side porch, and so of course my mom tells us to go upstairs, and she didn't want us to look. And she had a boy from down the street come down, an older boy come down and take the goat off and dispose of it. But of course my cousin taunted me forever that the Carrs Creek Critter had come up to the house and killed our poor little goat named Billy. Of course, it was Billy the goat, and but apparently this goat had like a circular hole in the back of its neck.
Yeah, right there. Stop.
So Chris obviously thinks it's Chupacabra hanging out in Greenberg,
When you
Tennessee.
told me the story, you said it had a hole in the back of its
It
neck,
did.
and I'm like, you are aware that you're telling me about a Chupacabra sighting, right?
I don't know what it is. I was always told that bobcats make that kind of a wind. I don't know if that's true or not.
The thing
but-
I asked her, I was like, do you know what Chupacabra means in Spanish? And she was like, no, what? And I'm like, goat sucker.
Which
That's what it
makes
means, is
sense.
goat sucker. You said there's a perfectly rational explanation, and you actually have saw this recently, right?
Well, we think so, but you know how people tell you stories and everybody claims to know everything. So who knows if it was actually true or not? But this was a story I'd heard, 6 or 7 years ago from some people I'd come in contact through my work. But basically, if you haven't ever heard about the Carrs Creek Critter, in June and July of 66, there was this big stink about this critter that was hanging around Carrs Creek in the Carrs Creek area.
A big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal, I guess, back then. And I had never actually looked the story up until, we started talking about doing the Carrs Creek Critter, so I did a little bit of research. And apparently some people had started seeing this thing around Carrs Creek, which is down in Springfield, Tennessee. But apparently, everybody made a big stink about it to the point where, they had thousands, the articles I read said they had thousands of cars parked in the gravel along Carrs Creek. Now, right now, Carrs Creek has a highway that runs over the top of it heading into Springfield if you're coming from like the Greenbrier Ridgetop area. And it's, it used to be just a little concrete bridge, and you had, I think it was a 4-lane highway that ran over the top of it. But back in the day, who knows? It might have been just a little small bridge and a gravel road. I don't know what size that road was back then.
Right.
But they said they had thousands of people parking on the side of the road right over Carrs Creek, and they were all going out trying to hunt this thing and
Wow.
spot it, and to the point where they had so many cars that they actually blocked an ambulance one time from getting down the road.
Yeah, how many people are out looking for this thing, man?
Quite
Like
a few.
everybody,
I guess
sounds like.
county officials were actually worried that they had so many, people out there that maybe were not responsible with their guns,
I was
like
about to
younger,
say.
younger folks, in the early 20s and stuff that maybe weren't super safe with their guns, and they were
Sure
worried somebody was
is
going to get
insane.
shot
I was
because
about
people
to
were
say,
hunting this thing.
Somebody. It sounds like this is a recipe for somebody getting shot, like this. But at any rate, go ahead.
But so people have described it as a dog type shaped animal with short ears and a bobtail. It's either gray or black in color. Some people say it has stripes.
So it's a dog type thing.
It's a dog type creature is what people have said. And as far as like the evidence people have found, tracks and things, there was a guy, I think, and his son that had been going through the woods, and they thought they saw something move, and they went to chase after it. I don't know if they were hunting or picnicking or taking a walk or what, but they heard it splash through the creek, and they went down the creek, and all they found were big, like, dog-like footprints, or
Right.
something like a cougar, a dog, something of
Did
that
they
nature.
check and see like how much that thing should weigh for that size?
Well, yeah, and they said from all the prints they found, they think it's an animal between about 100 and 125 pounds. There was another story of a lady picnicking, and she had her picnic spread laid out, and she got up to go take a walk and came back, and there were big muddy footprints all over her picnic blanket, and I guess her meat or food of whatever kind she had for her picnic had been picked up and took off with.
Her lunch got eaten by the Carrs Creek critter.
Yeah, somebody
That's
else
pretty-
described it as, it looked like that had actually seen it. They described it as it looked like a bear sitting on a log. I guess it was sitting right around a log somewhere. It looked like a bear.
Whoa.
People have,
That's a teeny tiny bear.
Have you ever have you ever seen a hairless bear?
yes,
Yes.
I have actually. They're kind of freaky looking.
That would fit the description. Can you imagine a hairless bear running around eating people's picnic baskets?
Oh, no thanks. I don't want to see Yogi Bear. I don't like bears. They scare me.
It would not be as cute if he was naked. I can.
No.
I can
Now,
guarantee.
see if there was a little one, there'd be Yogi and Boo Boo.
Hey, boo boo.
Hey, Boo Boo.
But so this woman for real had her lunch snatched.
Yeah, and they
And
have
this is-
a lot of probable suspects. That people have, come up with everything from it's a hyena that escaped from the circus,
Yeah.
to it's possibly a bobcat. We have bobcats in
Now,
the area.
that when you were talking about the goat a minute ago, and I said there's a much more rational explanation than instantly going, "Oh, it's a goat sucker." The hole in the back of the neck. You said
I've heard that bobcats make that kind of a wound on an animal
Bobcats mainly
sometimes.
go for the throat. They go for the
Neutralize
jugular
that
and
spine.
neutralize it and done.
put it down.
But see, it depending on, you said it was in the back of the neck, but did anybody catch the measurement of the wound?
Oh no!
because
I mean, you
it's
gotta
just
think
a
I was like
hole,
9 or 10.
and
it's
the
my
kids are crying. The goat's dead. They're trying to get it in the
Yeah.
ground. You know what I mean? They're like, well, okay, well, it's dead either way. You
Yeah.
know. So, but the thing of it is, you think you've seen recently.
Yeah,
you
just
think
in the
that you
last
saw
year, I've seen a
out here.
bobcat twice at our house. I saw one on
heard
our
it.
back porch one time because we have cats, and I was like, man, I walked out the door and saw it take off out to the edge of the woods because our back of our house has a tree line right, maybe 100 yards from the back of our house. There's a
Yeah.
tree line, and we've got a chicken coop back there that we did have chickens at that point in time, which come up mysteriously.
Yeah.
They disappear
all
very
our animals
frequently.
keep disappearing.
Well,
We've lost cats. We've lost dogs. We've lost, and
We've lost a lot of chickens
lot
out
of
here.
chickens, yeah, and it just disappears. And of course, out here, we've got coyotes everywhere. Like you can hear them screaming at nighttime.
That was the other thing. They thought maybe it could have been a coyote because we have really large packs of
pack.
coyotes out here, which
Pack.
can be troublesome. If you don't have a big dog and you've got land that's out kind of in the woods, you need a big dog because coyotes will come up to your house. But yeah, somebody had said that they had found, I think, the remains of a marsupial wolf off in another country somewhere. And somebody even theorized that a marsupial wolf may have hung onto a log and come across the ocean and found a river that came inland and somehow ended up in Robertson County, which is retarded.
Talk about Occam's razor.
Yeah,
the
but-
wolf built a raft.
Yeah,
and-
wolf built a raft, hung onto a log,
Raft wolf.
got to Robertson County. I
Guinness
don't
Book
know.
of World Records right there.
Maybe it grew wings in the process and somehow flew here. I mean, that's just as likely.
But I mean, getting back to, like you said, bobcat story, but how to distinct a bobcat from a coyote. Bobcat makes a shrieking sound like like a screaming
They do.
woman.
It's
I
in bed.
heard
scary
one.
as
I
all
heard
hell.
the one that Christy's seen up here. We've both heard it. And when I heard this thing, I was like, "Oh, that's a bobcat."
Yeah.
It wasn't like, "Oh, it might be this," or it was a bobcat.
Yeah,
It
and
was
in the course of a week, I saw it on our back porch, and it took off running. I thought, man, that's a damn big cat. That is a really big
also
cat, but it
better-
wasn't a cat. It was
it's
a
scary.
bobcat.
He was up next to the house.
It
man.
was at the back door, and then I saw probably the same one run across the driveway when I was coming home one night because I worked, the 3 to 11 shift at that point. But people have even thought maybe it's a cougar, bobcat, Tasmanian wolf, coyote.
Didn't you say
hyena from the
somebody
circus.
saw a black? What is the black cat with a panther?
Yeah, some people have said they've seen
I
big
saw
black cats in the
one.
area.
I saw a black panther whenever I was growing up. I was probably about 16 or so, on Pole Hill Road down in Millersville. And I was walking up the road and I saw this big, huge black cat. And it was not like a house cat. This thing was like far off, but it was massive. And it just stepped into the woods, and that's all I saw. But you said somebody else
Yeah,
said,
I was talking to my cousin the other day, and he said his dad actually, who would have been probably somewhere between 10 and 15 in 66, who's
Wow,
probably about
right
that
in
age. He
there.
was probably a young young teenager. Right. He saw, and he lives, or used to live two houses away from us, and we're only a couple miles from Carrs Creek, but he said he saw a large black cat walk across the back of their field right next to the tree line. Yeah. Back around that time that everybody was throwing this big stink about the Carrs Creek critter. Man. But, so I had actually come across, this couple when in the course of, working at my job. I had to travel for my job, and, went to their house, and I'm chit-chatting and talking, and, you got to think this is 6 or 7 years ago. This was just, I think, somebody I had seen one time. Right. And they were like, hey, we have they had the news one of the old news articles on their wall framed.
Like, hey, what's that?
Yeah. And I was like, hey, what's this? And they were like, oh, have you ever heard about the Carrs Creek critter? And I said, I explained my cousin used to scare the hell out of me with that when I was a kid. And he'd tell me every single time anything crazy happened at the house, or if we had a dead animal out in the yard, possum, it was always the Carrs Creek critter. And I didn't know all this stuff had happened back in '66. So obviously this animal was dead by the time I'm a young kid. Right. And they said, we actually know what that is. And I was like, how do you know what it is? And this was an older couple, so they would have been grown, around 66.
No one found out, right?
Yeah, nobody ever found out what it was. I guess everybody had all their theories, and they never actually caught it or found out what it was or had any evidence. Wow. So he said, I know what that was. And you got to think, this guy lives about a mile or so from Carrs Creek, where that bridge is that's...
it seems legit.
Yeah, that bridge that runs over Carrs Creek right up there by the Walmart in Springfield. And he said, that was our Great Dane. He said, I know exactly what that was. He said, I can't remember what color he said his Great Dane was. It was either gray, black, or brindle. It was a dark shade. It was a dark color. But you got to think, Great Danes, they have short ears, they have bobtails. It's likely that they weigh between 100 and 125 pounds. People were seeing dog paw prints all over the place around Carrs Creek. He said our dog got loose and was just running all over town and scaring the hell out of folks.
A Great Dane could do some damage.
Yeah, and I don't know if the situation was that he had gotten loose. I don't know if he was a mean dog. I don't know if maybe he got bit by something and he became rabid and started killing animals.
Can you imagine a rabid Great Dane? That'd get you some Carrs Creek critter right there, I bet.
But yeah, people in the area were saying that their pets were like just cowering at their front doors. A lot of people's dogs were acting scared to death, and little, small house pets were coming up dead and stuff like that. So I don't know. It sounds legitimate to me that it could be a Great Dane, because it sounds, follows kind of along with what everybody had found.
It would fit the bill.
Yeah.
Well, you said the deer, though. There was a...
Yeah, I actually found another story, and it was, I think it was labeled as, found the Carrs Creek critter or Carrs Creek critter sighting.
You were digging for that.
Yeah, I was digging for anything Carrs Creek related. And I came across this story. This guy was out deer hunting, and I guess he had parked off, next to the woods and gone into the woods, looking around for game trails or whatever. And he found this 8-point buck, that was dead and had its throat ripped out.
Whoa.
But its rack was still intact. And he thought, well, a hunter's not going to kill this thing. It's not a person that killed it. Hunter's not going to kill this thing and then leave an 8-point rack, just attached to the animal and just walk off.
I know I wouldn't.
No hunter would.
Yeah, nobody's going to do that.
Or let the meat waste, or whatever.
Yeah, I can even see him taking the horns and not leaving the meat to waste. Some people do that, but he actually saw a thing he described as a almost 8-foot tall, large, hairy ape-like creature. So, a Bigfoot-esque type creature.
A large hominid.
So, of course, he hightails it to his truck and jumps in, and he's looking for his keys and trying to get his truck started and digging for his gun, and this thing's at his window, so it followed him to the truck. So he peels out of there and goes back down the road he came in at, and there's a tree down across the road that wasn't there when he came in. So he calls a buddy of his and says, hey, man, bring your chainsaw and your gun. I need some help. The guy comes down. Helps him cut the tree up so he can get his truck through. And at some point along there, they had seen another buck out in the woods. So he pulled his gun out and goes to take aim. And his buddy's like, hey, dude, look behind the deer. And there's the thing again. There's this creature again. And it runs at him. And I guess they must have taken a shot. And I don't know if they hit it or not. It didn't say. But I guess it came after him. And then they shot at it. And it turned around and he says it crawled off, I think is the way they described it. But his buddy was telling him how he had some of his cattle come up with their throats ripped out, and they had seen numerous large footprints after that in that same area. And it was right around the same area of Carrs Creek.
Bigfoot footprints.
Yeah, he described himself as being 6'1" and wearing a size 14 shoe, and he said the footprints were bigger than his, so this was a darn big creature.
Wow.
But yeah, so that's more of like a Bigfoot type
Well, but the
critter
thing,
is what he saw.
right? But I mean, in the process out there searching for this Cars Creek critter, which is like a dog type thing, he has an encounter with a Bigfoot. Well, for lack of a better word, Bigfoot. And the thing of it is, everybody instantly jumps and goes, "No way! This is Tennessee. You know, they're in the Pacific Northwest." No,
But
Not true.
there are 96 confirmed sightings of a Bigfoot, aka Sasquatch, here in Tennessee alone.
Henry brought our attention to a website. What is the website, Henry? It's
Bigfoot Research.
No, it's BFRO
.net.
All right, and it's Bigfoot. It's a research center, right?
Yeah, I'd actually, that's kind of weird. It's like you don't think of Bigfoot as being in Tennessee, but I actually was out with when I was in college and I was going to Ball State. Me and a bunch of my girlfriends had gotten up and we decided we were going to go out for the night, and we had gone to my friend's house in Clarksville and we're heading back towards Nashville on I-24 during that big, down that big strip of high
it's
interstate.
woods out there,
And it's nothing but forest on either side of the interstate. There was nobody out. It was after dark, and I was sitting in the back seat, and I think it was my friend Jamie that was sitting in the front seat driving, and she slammed on the brakes, and everybody in the front seat started screaming. I'm like, oh my God, what's it? I was looking down at my phone or something, and I looked up and we see this big, like, human-esque shaped, looked like a really big dude in a puffy set of clothes, like a big puffy set of coveralls or something, run across the highway. And you got to think, there's no stores out there. There were no other parked cars, no parking lots, nothing where he could be running from, like, across the street from one business to another or to his car. There was nothing out there but woods. But it looked like a big guy, like, like, I don't know, about, like a 7 foot tall guy, like, in a big puffy outfit, or fur, big furry dude, like, running across the road.
Oh man!
And of course, it scared the hell out of us.
Furry dude.
You're saying he was like burly, like
Yeah,
he
it
looked
looked.
like,
because it was dark, so we just got like an outline, and it was just really brief, just a couple of
but
seconds.
everybody saw it.
But yeah, we all saw it, and there was probably 5 of us in the car at that point because it was a big group of us girls, and we all saw it. So,
All right, it's called the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization.
There you go, Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization.
I'm actually on their website right now. Just this past year, there was a track found, and they got pictures on the website. It was found in Ohio.
The thing that gets me though about the Tennessee sightings, like everybody, you can look for recent ones, but it's not necessarily what's recent. If you look in the past, like, it is an unbelievable amount of Bigfoot reports in Tennessee, and it's going to happen again because it's happened in the past, And that, Henry, you said 96?
96 confirmed sightings that were reported in Tennessee alone. But you got to realize, just like Christy said, a size 14 shoe is Bigfoot, because I wear 14s myself. It was measured, the footprint that was found, it was measured 15.5 inches length. The ball of the foot was 7.5 inches, and the heel was 4.5.
That's a lot.
That's a big foot.
That is a big foot, regardless of whatever else it is. Well, here's the thing. Like, you think that Bigfoot is ridiculous for Tennessee. Let me tell you, I'll tell you my personal experience with it. Now, this happened with my brother Brandon, and my cousin JB was there at the time, as a matter of fact. But this happened, all right? JB's sister Jamie is back in the back bedroom, and she's taking a bath. She calls Brandon over quietly, and she says, "Hey, Brandon, I think somebody's peeping in the window at me." So, my brother's like an avid hunter, right? At the time, I don't know if he still holds the record, but he killed the biggest buck in Tennessee killed by a juvenile. Like, he's a hunter. He's a real hunter. So he grabs a 30-06, he loads it up, he goes outside of the house, and he's walking around down there. And he comes around the corner of the house, and he looks up on the porch, and there's a window on the porch that's about 6 foot up. And he said there's something standing there, but it's crouched down. Like, it has to crouch down to look in a 6 foot tall window. And he's looking at it, and he's just kind of staring at it, and it kind of comes into focus, and he realizes what he's looking at, right? And about that time, he went to back away. He said he was so scared when he realized what it was that he didn't even think about having the 30-06 in his hands. Like, he forgot the gun. He was so scared. So he started to back up a little bit, and his foot cracked on something, and this thing like wheeled around. That's how he described it. He said like it turned like its upper torso and body or whatever, and wheeled around and looked at him, and he was looking dead at in the face, like he's like, he knew what it was.
See,
It
so
was,
Bigfoot's a peeping Tom, huh?
that's the case in this situation. I don't know why, but the whole area is super wooded. You remember that had that giant pond out back, like
Yeah.
it was hills and stuff everywhere. So Brandon's looking at this thing and it's staring at him, and like he knows what it is. He's looking right at it. So it turns around, it steps off the porch. The porch is like 5 feet off the ground. It's got like 5 or 6 steps up to it. It steps one step down the porch. It takes like a couple steps across the yard, and there's a 20-foot bluff up the back. It takes 1, 2, 3 steps into the bluff, gone. That's it.
Oh, wow.
That's the whole story, right? And Brandon did not want to tell this story. He does not believe in any of the supernatural stuff. He's a practical dude. He doesn't, don't do ghosts and all that stuff. But we actually got him to tell this story. And after he was telling it, my mom was sitting there, and I noticed she's smirking kind of the whole time. And I'm like, what are you smiling about? And she goes, your uncle saw the same thing about a quarter mile away in the 70s. Saw the same thing up there. And the thing of it is, I got to talking to her back in the 60s and into like 1970. I think around 70 to 72 was the peak. There was this big rash of sightings on Hogan's Branch Road, which is back there in Hendersonville around the beach area. That's where JB lived, and there were sightings all along Hogan's Branch Road, and they would warn people, if you're driving down Hogan's Branch Road, do not stop at night, because these things were jumping up on people's cars and shaking people's cars. Now, I actually, it was a whole thing. It was to the point that people were pointing the finger at each other and accusing each other of pulling a scam. Messing with people, like having a monkey suit on the side of the road and messing with people. Fingers were pointed even about that, but somebody in a suit can't jump on a car and shake it,
Didn't
like...
you say somebody else, you had
Yeah,
talked to somebody
I
else
was-
that had a story from it that right around that time in that same area?
Okay, here's the deal. I got a buddy that called in, and he wants to remain anonymous, right? So let's call him B. All right, so B told me this story, and he wants to remain anonymous. Which is weird, because most people want the attention, of having a sighting or whatever. They're like, yeah, you can say my, he doesn't care about the attention. He don't want people to think he's nuts. Like, this is a very sane, sober, quote unquote normal guy, family guy, father guy, but this happened to him. And he was he said about 14 or so, and they had just got a new 4-wheeler. And they're riding it up and down, and they're back in the woods, and they're around their house, and they stop by their grandma's, and he's driving down the road, and it's about 9 o'clock at night. And of course, it has headlights. And he notices about 100 yards away, he sees somebody walking down the road. And he's like, him and his brother on the 4-wheeler, and he's like, who is this walking down the road at, 9 o'clock at night out here in the middle of nowhere on our property? Who is this? And so he keeps like driving towards it or whatever, and he got about 50 yards away, and that's when he realized something was wrong with this particular person. He said first he noticed it was massive, and then the headlights kind of point down to ground. You know how 4-wheeler headlights are, and they kind of swept up. He said it swept up the legs and went up it, and he saw that this thing was covered in like reddish hair. And he was seeing it from the back, right? So he starts gearing down and like braking, because they're running right towards this thing. And so he starts gearing down and braking and starting to get slowed down and turn around. And as he was going to turn around, this thing turned around itself and looked at him. And he is like, I looked at it, it looked at me. We knew what each other were. We were looking at each other, And he's trying to get turned around and get out of there. And he didn't stop and ask his brother, hey, do you see that? He said his brother started slapping him in the back, screaming, go, 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 go. And so he's trying to whip it around and drive in the other direction. And he's like gunning it. All right. And afterwards, he talked to his brother, and his brother said that thing was right behind him, gaining on him, like running him down. He said this 4-wheeler went like 47 miles an hour, fully wide open. And he said they were coming out of, second into third so they're running like 20 plus mile an hour, and this thing was chasing them. That's the scary part. Like, imagine running up on a Bigfoot. That's scary enough.
Hell yeah.
But then the thing starts after you, Can you imagine?
I haven't
You know
heard
how
too
scary
many
it is when-
stories where Bigfoot chases people, or a Bigfoot creature chases people. Usually, if they take
You know how
off.
scary it is when a bear chases somebody?
Well-
Can you imagine a Bigfoot chasing somebody?
Well, you got to realize, I mean, the anonymous tipper, he lives in Sumner County just as we do.
Station camp
Station
area.
Camp. But they're also in Sumner County. There are 2 confirmed sightings. One's near Portland and one is near Hendersonville.
There's actually been, I looked, there's several in Hendersonville. The whole area of Hendersonville, lots of people have seen stuff, especially back near like Indian Lake, Calendar Lane.
There's actually one of the stories in here recalls to the Indian Lake sightings. Because it said nearest town, Hendersonville, nearest road, Indian Lake Road.
Right. Well, I'll tell you something else. We've got, Christy, you got a friend, right?
I do.
That's-
I actually have a friend that has got her own Bigfoot story.
This is a buddy of yours.
Yeah, this is a buddy of mine I met through work. We don't work at the same place anymore, but that's our little turn on sound there.
Yeah,
But we're
that's
going
our-
to give her
our
a call.
phone
She wanted to tell her Bigfoot story and see if we can get her on the line.
But
real
you
quick.
said she wants to remain anonymous too, right?
No, not necessarily. Just
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Well, how are you?
I'm doing very well. This is Chris, and I have Christy over here. You said we can use your first name, right? Okay. Well, what we were wondering about, Christy said that you had a really interesting story from up around the Land Between the Lakes, right up the road area.
Yes.
What is going on at the Land Between the Lakes?
Well, years ago when I was growing up, they actually had the Fish and Wildlife and whoever else, government agencies, she plaster cast a Bigfoot footprint down by the creek.
Wow.
On the property that my family has owned for a while.
Up there in like it's Land Between the Lakes type area, right?
Yes, it is. It's like the borders of the lake. At the time, it was as close as you could live by the lake. The TDA would allow you to build.
Yeah.
A real rural area. There's not much out there. There's actually Wi-Fi, but there was no satellite signal or any of that kind of stuff was so far out there. But they that plaster cast. And then years later, there was this structure that appeared on my family's property, and when my father was asked about it, he's kind of a prankster. He just made a comment that it was built to scare the elephants off. And I guess he didn't really want to get into it because he didn't want to scare any children. And when we said, "What do you mean elephants?" And he said, "We've never seen them out here, have we?" And he left it at that. And as I got older and learned more about the legend and folklore of Bigfoot, this is one of the things. The trees are all leaning together, kind of like a teepee sort of thing. They're all.
I was going to ask what kind of structure you were talking about.
Yeah, it looks like a teepee would have to hide on it or something. I don't know how many, maybe 8 to 10 trees all leaning together.
Right.
I think I sent a picture to you guys of it.
Yeah. Is it like when people find the trees broke and bent over, these big, huge trees that are broken and bent?
Yeah, they're really long and straight, and they're all bent over and leaning against each other.
Now, I've heard, and you said that they found a footprint up there too, right?
Yes.
Well, see, we were...
Farther downhill.
Well, we found out whenever we looked it up, there's actually 96 confirmed sightings on one website alone, the Bigfoot Field Research website, and like this area has been covered up in sightings. But what I was wanting to know, do you know why they bend them over like that? Have you ever heard?
I think it's just to mark their territory. We, a friend of mine and I actually went back about a month ago just to see the property, and walked up the hill, and he was interested in this lean-to, these things, and he was questioning me, what did your dad ever say about it? What do you remember? Because it disappeared from there. Who built it? We didn't know. Nobody ever said. My dad made a joke about it, but nothing else ever mentioned too much about it. But one night coming home from me and my dad, my my infant daughter and I all come back from dinner, and he was sick at the time, so he went out to the house. I got things out of the car and locked the car up. And as I was walking on the car, I could smell this indescribable, sickening smell.
I've heard that. I've heard you can smell them before
Yeah,
you see them.
it's daily. It's awful. It's very sickening. And then I heard bipedal footsteps. And that made chills around my spine. So I just focused on getting in the house as quickly as I could. And it was 10 or more yards to the house from where we parked the car. But I could hear it walking up towards me, and I could smell it getting stronger. And all I wanted to do was get in the house. It was coming up the hill, yeah.
You're the third person that we've talked to that has said that this thing has like been coming towards them, after them.
It was big because you could hear it snapping big sticks underneath his feet when it was walking.
Man.
It was just like crack, 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 crack. And it was ascending the hill coming up towards me. So I got in the house as quickly as I could.
Ooh.
And I turned the floodlights on, hoping that maybe some light would
There'd
keep it
never
away
be
from the
another
house.
Code Brown moment.
But as I said, we went back about a month ago, and my friend was interested in this lean-to, and he went over to kind of studying it, pushing it, seeing how strong the structure was, and all of a sudden we heard a big twig snap. Not even a twig, it was like a big pop, like wood snapping. Another tree got broken.
Right.
And got my attention, got his attention, and was up the hill. And when we first arrived, we saw deer running, not away from us, but farther up the hill. They were running in a different direction. And when he started pushing on this fortification, this structure, it got something's attention up there because we heard not one, but I think two or three before we got off the hillside, big snaps of wood. And it sounded like something was coming down the hill toward us. I didn't turn around to see. He stopped several times to pause and listen and watch, and then he'd hurry along because it was still coming. And that's been as recent as a month ago.
Man.
Nobody lives out there now since my father's passed away. So it's our suspicion that maybe something's just kind of set up homestead there.
Right. I mean, did they go back for like a long time in the family?
The stories about the Bigfoot thing.
Yeah.
My family never talked about it much. My dad took us down to where they were casting the footprint. We've asked, people at there's Barclay Lodge, which is down a few miles from the house, and we'd asked people recently if they, had any stories about it, and they were more about the dog man, and they were talking about the big cats that had been seen in the area, and we told them our story about Bigfoot, and they all just kind of got quiet. Now, one time they did bring an old fellow out of the kitchen to talk to us about it. He didn't refute it. He said there were stories about it, but he didn't go into detail. But I guess my story goes back 40 years.
I mean, is anything still going on, you think, recently?
Well, we were just up there last month, and something stopped the hill.
It came up? Did you hear it or see it? You heard the snapping and stuff?
We heard the snap, and we didn't want to, because he'd been messing with that structure, and I said, you don't want to knock that down. And I said, don't bother it. It's when we heard a big crack. And we both looked up the hill, and heard footsteps coming. And again, whatever it wasn't like deer stuff was in the leaves or anything. It was a big, waiting because it was just a lot of stuff. And then we heard another pop with a big tree trunk or something.
Yeah.
Not.
You think it was like breaking trees to coming at you? Do you think it was
think
just stumbling over?
Trees. I don't know. No, it was deliberate. I think it was breaking things. I've heard stories where they'll actually chuck trees at you.
Oh, yeah. Now, I know they throw rocks. I've heard that.
I guess it's true. I've heard some stories about the throwing trees, too, so I wasn't going to run to it. I was headed down the hill.
Whew.
And like I said, my friend stopped and watched, and I thought it was foolish. If you can get his feet on it, I would have saved him from it. But yeah, I think it was messing around on the hill. It's curious, but it was breaking it for limbs or trees.
And this is right up the road, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty close by. We've found a ton of people that are talking about seeing this thing here in Tennessee.
Well, this is right on the Tennessee line. I think 7 miles from the Tennessee state line.
Oof.
I tell you what, you've done a sufficient job in freaking me out about going outside to take a whiz from now on.
I'd be
Well, you know,
interested to
I
set some
won't-
trail cams up
I
around
want
the
to go back up there.
structure and see what you catch.
Yeah, Christy was actually talking about it'd be interesting to put up some trail cams around that structure and see if you can catch anything. Have you ever thought about doing that?
Yeah, I had such a maybe kind of hunters and they had some game cameras and put them in the trees. There's no sound. There are no street lighting up there, so it's flat.
I don't know. I still think it'd be interesting to try it. I'd be out there with some good cameras or some night vision or something.
Yeah, I don't think I want to spend the night out there anymore. And this was daylight when we were there before.
Yeah,
It was
actually,
daylight when we were there with sun was just that.
One of the reasons you freak me out so bad is I used to go camping whenever up at Land Between the Lakes, and I'll never go again. I guarantee it. But listen, we appreciate you calling us and telling us about it, and we'll make sure and let you know as soon as the show goes up.
Oh, great. Thanks.
No problem. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for calling in.
Wow. So
Yeah, that would be
road.
really cool to see what
But
you
I
get on
mean,
trail cams.
I also was watching a video earlier of a dog on a body cam.
Oh yeah.
I was watching it, and it actually has video footage of a large thing
Yeah.
walking across the woods, and the dog just stops.
Yeah,
and
and-
does not move.
When he pulled it up, I was going, nah, it's fake. It's got to be fake. And then I took a closer look at it, and I was like, oh, okay. Well,
Then
that
I
appears to be
seen
legit.
another video of a creature
Yeah.
jumping 30 feet down a mountain and landed on its feet and walking
30
away.
feet. Super ape. Well, another thing that we're going to fit in, we've got a buddy. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. He's actually Christy's cousin, and his name is Tony. And Tony is super cool, and he's into the Bible. He's into studying the Bible, figuring out what it means. And he's come across a pretty interesting theory. He's come up with a couple theories that, and I've seen a lot of documentaries on Bigfoot. I haven't heard these theories. These are kind of like bombshell things to me, anyway. So I'm gonna see if we can't get him on the phone here.
Hey,
How we doing, big man?
we're doing good.
Welcome
Man.
to the show.
1 second.
I've told everybody that you've got some really interesting theories. I was like, he studies the Bible. He's a biblical dude. He likes to study it and figure out exactly what it means. And he's come up with a couple theories that I consider to be kind of bombshells type thing. But I was wondering if you could kind of hook everybody up on your theory, because I thought it was super cool and it fits really well into the space, man. So break it off a little bit. Tell us what you think about. Now, if somebody thinks it's ridiculous that somebody sights a Bigfoot in Tennessee, what would you say to that? Would you believe it or not?
Yeah, I believe there's something. Until I started reading about all that, I was pretty skeptical of Bigfoot. But as far as Tennessee, they were everywhere.
Right.
From what I read about, they were out west in a lot of places, but there are stories in Oklahoma, and so it goes to reason if they were all over the continent, then of course they could be in Tennessee as well.
Oh, absolutely. We actually found a website, and it's the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and they've got 96 reported sightings in Tennessee on that site alone. So I mean, it is an actual phenomenon. Whether the animal exists or not, people think they're seeing this thing anyway. But you've got a theory. You don't think necessarily of Bigfoot being Gigantopithecus or being the missing link. You've got a different theory for the origin, right?
Yes, I do. I believe personally, from things I've read, that all the legends, the theories, whatever you want to call it, I believe these all stem from a race of what they call red-haired giants that are descendant of
Wow.
the Nephilim from Bible, from Genesis.
Red-haired. Wow.
Yeah.
Just like a Bigfoot, huh?
Yes. I've read that they're actually I don't know the right word, I guess off-breed of, I don't know the right word, but
Variety.
they are a form of human, but they were descendant of the Nephilim. They're a race of red-haired giants. I've heard stories, I've read stories from Native Americans, the early white settlers. I mean, even the Hawaiian goddess Pele. I read she is of these legends. She was one of the red-haired giants. And one of the things about them is, as large as they were, they had voracious appetite, supposedly going so far as being cannibalistic towards humans.
Wow.
Which is why they were hunted down, and most of them were killed, and that would also explain why they would hide today.
Actually, you know what, man? We actually came across three stories today where people saw a Bigfoot, and not only did they see it, but were attacked by it. It was coming after them actively.
Yeah.
So that fits your model so far, but
Right.
and if people don't know what the Nephilim or the Nephilim are, can you kind of break that off a little bit?
The Nephilim were a race of giants that were bred. Scripture says when the sons of God looked upon the daughters of men, they saw them beautiful and took for themselves any they chose as wives. Well, they
Right.
produced offspring, and Scripture says these were a race of giants, or Nephilim, which are, they survived. There are many people who think they were one of the many reasons for the flood. They led mankind astray. They caused us to become very sinful. And I personally believed they demanded mankind worship them as gods. And that's where we get our modern mythological figures.
Now-
I think
These giants, I gotta ask, the giants that you're talking about like David and Goliath type giants, right?
or possibly bigger, yes.
Well, see, now you were talking about this to me, and you brought up an interesting theory. You said, these Nephilim are supposed to be where angels wound up breeding with humans, but you said, I think angels are spiritual beings and they aren't capable of reproducing, which makes sense.
Right.
To me. Makes sense to me. And you had another theory on that, right?
I personally believe, and nothing is in Scripture about this, so for anybody listening, don't take this as Scripture. It is not.
Well, you said this is not necessarily a theory; it's a hypothesis. It's an idea,
Yes.
right? Something to ponder.
I've wondered, and there's some differentiation. God says, Scripture tells us that the sons of God looked upon the daughters of men. Something differentiates the sons of God.
Yeah, they're different than humans. They're not humans.
Right. So I got to wondering what could possibly differentiate that. The angel theory doesn't work. Before the fall, I believe Adam and Eve had other children. I've had thoughts that perhaps Adam and Eve had other children because they were told to be fruitful and multiply before the fall.
Yeah, we were talking about that. God told them to go forth and be fruitful and multiply, but you're saying that this occurred before they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden and before Cain and Abel.
Right.
This was
if those humans, I would think that if they had children before the fall, before sin entered the world, that sin was on Adam and Eve and their descendants from that point on.
But you think maybe there was
children?
You think there was like a race of people that didn't fall out of favor, that remained in favor, right?
Right.
Very
And
interesting.
Scripture
Man.
doesn't tell us this. And those were the sons of God who bred with the daughters of men. That was their fall. They were pure up until that point, and then when they started breeding with sinful man, that became their sin, and it created these giants, and that is what ended up ultimately leading to God destroying the earth. But the giants, their genetic code survived the flood through Noah and his children, and that's what gave rise to more giants in the modern era.
You're talking about one of these giants, and specifically being Sasquatch or Bigfoot, right?
Yes, that is where I think Bigfoot, Sasquatch came from. I believe they are basically a race of mutated humans, giant humans, from the very beginning.
Another thing you were talking about was the part where you were talking about people worshiping them as gods. Now, if there was a race of giants walking around today, I can guarantee they would want to be worshipped like gods. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And back in the
absolutely.
day, I told him back in the day, people used to worship cows and, all kinds of stuff.
the Hindu culture still worships cows.
Right, but
Right.
it caught me as strange. I'm like, well, if people will worship cows and snakes and all kinds of different things, if there was a race of giant superhumans walking around, you would think that they would be worshiping them too.
Yes.
It makes very good sense. Now, another thing that we were talking about is Christy is of the idea. It's an idea. It's not a belief, but of the idea that Bigfoots, if they exist, they might bury their dead, and that's why we don't find any bodies laying around everywhere. But you had another theory about this because they've recently found out even chimpanzees. They found out chimps eat monkeys. They eat meat. They're not just eating
Right.
bananas. They're cruel and eat meat. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you were talking about, you had a theory with Bigfoot on that, right?
That they possibly, I believe, as far as cannibalism, I suppose, could have ate their own, but there was more that they cannibalized humans, lower humans, because we were smaller, we were weaker, and they had the livestock just couldn't keep up with their appetite. So they resorted to eating humans, but as we hunted them down and they became fewer, then it is totally possible that they would have resorted to eating their own dead.
Well, what you're saying makes sense with the whole, if you stop and think about the whole Jack and the Beanstalk, you remember there was this giant that was going to eat him. And,
Yeah.
but Christy and me were talking about it. And, she was talking about, well, give him your theory.
Well, I think that makes sense that they could be cannibalistic. I mean, it's documented that we've got humans that are cannibals. We've
Right.
got animals, like with the chimpanzees that are, cannibalistic and they eat other monkeys. But you got to think it's a big animal. It requires a lot of fuel. Most, humans and, any kind of ape variety, they're all omnivores. They eat meat and they eat plants. And especially in the winter, you got to think you got this big creature, requires a lot of fuel. It's fearful of humans, so it's not going to probably try to come into populated areas looking for food. So it's got to fight it out in the forest. It's probably not going to run as fast as we can't run as fast as a deer and chase it down if you had no tools. I mean, you're not going to go out and
No weapons.
catch
right.
a deer with your bare hands. I mean, granted, these are bigger animal type varieties of us, but it makes sense if they've got one of if a Bigfoot dies out in the woods, you've got a bunch of other Bigfoots or big feet or whatever you want to call them.
Big feet.
Yeah, big
Big
feet.
feet.
Well, that's the plural.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a large source of protein, especially in the winter, that's easily accessible to them, and they don't have to chase it down. So why wouldn't they cannibalize? They don't
Wow,
probably
eat their
have,
dead.
a religion and moral things that keep them from doing that like humans do.
It's just meat to them.
To them, it might just be meat, and maybe it's a good, it's a easy to catch, source of protein. So
Sorry, Grandpa, we're hungry.
yeah, sorry, Grandpa, we're hungry. And, that would make sense why we don't have just dead bodies of Bigfoot laying around that people have come across in the woods. I mean, it's not there because they ate them. And then the bones get scattered. And, any normal person that goes walking through the woods and finds a random bone, they're like, it came from a deer or
Yeah, you're not
a
going to think
possum.
Bigfoot bone right off
Yeah, it's
the bat.
probably not, I mean, if they're tearing into it and eating it, it's probably not going to be a complete skeleton. Even if the bones are laying around, it's going to be
Right.
scattered,
Right, exactly. But man, listen, we really appreciate you sharing the theories, and I tell you what, man, if nothing else, they're fun to think about. They definitely fit.
Yeah,
we lost
Oh,
time.
we lost it. That's a good theory. I mean, it's interesting.
He did have a lot of good
ideas.
points on that. But I mean, you also got to realize what he said about the older race of humans, like he said, what was it, like Neanderthals?
Oh, the Nephilim.
Nephilim, but it's also, I mean, in ancient times, back in the dinosaurs, they were actually called Neanderthals.
Yeah, you're talking about the link between us and the apes, the theory in Darwinism,
Because
right?
I mean, Darwinism, human and monkey DNA only differ by 2%.
Yeah, it's pretty close, man.
We're pretty close to being the same exact. We're just like 1 or 2 atoms off.
Well, Christy was talking about it could be a mutation. If you take a
it could just be an
mutation
offshoot, you know?
and repeat it a couple times, and especially if you get 2 mutated parents that have, So, closing statements. I mean, personally, I'm going to say that I don't think it's out of the question at all that people are seeing a large hominid in Tennessee walking around. I don't think that we know enough about anything. But let alone, there's so much space for this thing to live, especially you get up in the Pacific Northwest, and
especially if it's intelligent and it knows to hide from us. I mean, then
that was another point
that's
you
what
brought
keeps
up.
it surviving. It's going to hide from us.
Also, it's got to have enough intelligence to chase after people.
Right. I don't know. It's the way he was talking.
Intimidate living things.
Yeah, he was talking like it was a primal, like I'm gonna eat you.
It's like you're my dinner.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Like, it's scary enough to see a Bigfoot, but then to see a Bigfoot coming after you like a fork.
I'm sorry. I would just lay on the ground and say, "Bro, just go ahead.
Yeah,
it's my time to go. It's my time to go."
I'll definitely say I don't think that is out of the question at all. I think it's totally possible. So that's just me, my personal belief. I think we're all in agreement, right?
Yeah.
So next time somebody tells you a Bigfoot story and they're trying to get you to listen, you might actually want to listen and pay attention.
Exactly.
Not all these people are crazy. And like I've always said before, if one of these stories is true, if 99% of them are BS, if one of these stories is true, it's possible. So that's what we're saying. It's definitely possible. So until next time, guys, keep tuning us in. And if you've got any kind of brush with the supernormal, as we refer to it, the ParaNatural, any kind of, if you've seen lights in the sky, if there's an entity, if you got a ghost story, if you got something good,
something unexplainable,
you send it to us at the ParaNatural Podcast at gmail.com.
Please like and subscribe our videos.
Please like and subscribe. And also, if you can't reach us on our email, we do have a Facebook page.
Exactly. We do
Under
have the
ParaNatural
Facebook page.
Podcast.
If you look up the ParaNatural
We will update.
Podcast.
We will give news every week.
And we also are going to be doing some research for the Local Legends Part 2 show, and that we're going to be trying to go to the Bell Witch Cave. We're going to be trying to get some interviews with some members of the Bell family. We got some books that were written by members of the Bell family that one of our friends has that was going to loan it to us, so we're going to research that. We're going to bring it up in another episode. But until then, guys, this has been the ParaNatural Podcast. Sleep tight.